Okay, good evening, everybody. Hope you're all well. Hope you're all good. And as always, I hope you can all hear me. Got these Tuesdays just roll around super duper quick. But hopefully, we've got a little bit of an action packed one for you tonight. Obviously, as the title card suggested, we are going to have a look at AI and why the crypto space seems to be so gripped by AI and every possible movement AI can possibly be making. There's a lot of possibles there. But of course, we're going to talk about Bitcoin's price action and the rest of the crypto market because last couple of days we've been seeing a few downturns. And I think as a group, we've held that pretty well. We've not panicked or anything else, but there's definitely been, that sentiment and that narrative shift, particularly on crypto Twitter, which I recommend you don't really follow unless you've got a thick skin because it is very volatile in people's emotions there. So we'll have a look at what's going on there. We'll have a look at some news. I've had a couple of questions I will try and get through as well. But let's just jump straight in. As I can hear, you can all hear me loud and clear. Okay, right. So Bitcoin price action, as we've talked about last week. What day was it last week? We hit it probably Wednesday, maybe Thursday. Well, for a couple of days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we kept on hitting all-time highs. But we kind of peaked in and around about 73,000 last Wednesday, last Thursday. And pretty much since then, we've been seeing some fairly sizable drops on the daily with Bitcoin. We had these three rather large drops in a row. And whilst there was a minor pullback on Sunday, yesterday and today, we've seen further drops going all the way down today to around about 62,500. And when you think about that, that's about $11,500 drop from the all-time high of last week's price. So we've definitely seen some movement there. We'll have a look at how far that's gone. But because it's the king, it meant that nobody except for stablecoins and Ripple were exempt from falling. And we can kind of see with the ones we got along the bottom, Casper's been struggling now for probably the best part of a month and a half. And that's really starting to roll over. And got to start to question whether or not 10 cents is on the cards. Ethereum, so last week, Ethereum had, Nick, I will get to that, yes. Ethereum had their update last Wednesday or Thursday. Pretty much since then, we've seen Ethereum drop off. Now, it's got nothing to do, I would dare say, with the update, more just that it's falling like Bitcoin had as well. But it does seem to be a bit of a steeper fall. And that's not surprising given that actually the rise that Ethereum had over the last month or so was far sharper than Bitcoin's. And then we've got BitTensor. And yeah, okay, today's been a bit of a down day, but actually for BitTensor, we've kind of been ranging for the last month and we're still within that range. And yeah, I kind of could suggest that Bitcoin is, resting on some sort of support at the moment. It really does feel that BitTensor, Tau, at least hasn't got through the bottom side of that support around about 575. We have retested it over the last couple of days, but nothing to mention. From a news point of view, I think most of us in the group are kind of aware of this. There is a couple of issues with BitTensor and Tau at the moment and how the blockchain's been working. It's kind of on two sides from what I understand. We've got an issue with the blockchains and the amount of blocks being coming out. There was some sort of pause that happened on Saturday. It's kind of rectified on Sunday, but there's still some legacy issues along most of the subnets, which is affecting staking and staking rewards. And then probably what's more important to us is the withdrawals. So actually sending and withdrawing BitTensor to exchanges is currently halted. Now, that could be a little bit of a saving grace because anyone that was wanting to dump BitTensor in this previous fall and had it saved either in a staking wallet or in a cold wallet of some sort may not have been able to send it to an exchange, which may have halted it. So we may have only seen a drop because of that was what people had kept on exchanges. We'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, we'll go into price action a little bit later on. But for me, we have had a fallback. You'll see when we go through later, it has retested on some key levels, but it doesn't necessarily mean that this pullback is over. But I just want to reiterate what I said last week. Yeah, this maybe not wasn't expected, but we talked about getting down to 62, 60, 58, maybe even 52. And if Bitcoin is going to get to those levels, what do you think it is going to do to altcoins? It's going to bring them down with him. So, as I said earlier, don't think as a group we panic too much. But if you are starting to feel concerned, just don't. It's part of the plan. It's a much needed pullback we need. We'll have a look at how far this pullback has gone and where that's compared to previous bull cycles a little bit later on. But these pullbacks, they do happen, and it's just about holding your nerve. And just remember, we got in early enough, okay? So we've been used to seeing green. We've been used to seeing our portfolios only go up. A couple of days, week or so of a little bit of red is not too bad, particularly if you have been with us through the bear market. You know what it was like to hold a red portfolio. So, just accept that this happens, accept that we're not at the end. Well, unlikely, can't say not. Unlikely at the end of the bull market. Hopefully, we will continue. Hey to everyone in the chat, any questions that you may have, just fire them in there and I'll try and get around to them and look across periodically. But let's move on to some of the news. Shame on any of you who didn't pick up Bitcoin today for nearly $9,000. That's right. On BitMEX, which I've not used probably since 2018, and certainly when it didn't have a spot market, a whale apparently tried to sell 400 BTC in a short period of time, and the price of Bitcoin dropped all the way down to $8,900. If you don't believe me, here's the chart, and there it is in all its glory, firing all the way down to, just under $9,000. Now, I know what you're thinking. Did that just last 5 seconds, and could you have actually bought it? Unsure whether or not you could board it because I did go into the article, but suffice to say that BitMEX were aware of this straight away and they stopped the sale and the purchase of Bitcoin temporarily while they tried to get to the bottom of it. But if you actually have a break it down on the minute chart, you can kind of see that this whale didn't just do it once. I mean, he drove it down to that price on a couple of occasions, but he still drove it down on multiple occasions. This is the minute chart. 54,000, 48,000. 38,000, 30,000, and then we had these spikes all the way down. So there was definitely a bit of activity that was going on. Whether or not it was fishy, we'll just have to wait and see. But there we go. We all could have filled our bags at 9K if only we had known this was happening. Interesting to see. I don't know if anyone was even able to take advantage of it because although this is the minute chart, I can't go any lower. These spikes could have been 1 second. But the fact that they were happening often, maybe people did try to preempt it. Who knows? But yeah, very interesting. And then we had, I've scrolled down a little bit here. Good old Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy. We talked about last week and taking out an $800 million loan notes to buy 12,000 or 13,000 Bitcoin. Well, he's at it again yesterday with another $600 million worth of loan notes, and he's bought 9,000 Bitcoin. Now, it is a bit of a running joke in the crypto community, and if you've been in the crypto community for at least 2 years or so, you'll know that whenever MicroStrategy buy and announce it, it is a local top. Last week they announced it, local top. They announced it yesterday, it might have been today actually, local top. So, but they don't care. They're still buying. And we talked again last week about that mentality of institutional investors. And ultimately they see the bigger picture. They don't care if it goes up, it goes down, because they're not looking at tomorrow's price action. They're looking at next year's, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it's going to be. And they know that they're going to do all right whenever they buy. So, red days like this can be unnerving. Turn to Bitcoin Jesus, and there he is buying away. So that should give you some comfort. Don't get me wrong, he bought right at the top of 69,000 and saw it all drop, but he didn't stop. So good on him for that. But interesting to see that they kept on going. He even announced, for any of you that did watch that link I put in Discord last week, sorry, I keep on sniffing, that he was going to keep on trying to do this, and it only took him a week to find and raise that additional 600 million to turn it in there. So again, good on them, for finding a way to do that. I don't know why I've got the tracker open. We'll come back to that one. One of the news articles I picked up on Wednesday because, we hadn't dumped yet, but was interesting to see this Bitcoin only up rally was creating 1,500 crypto millionaires every day, which I thought was quite amazing, really. But the data was kind of suggesting that, that's a success that everybody was having, and people would be able to convert if they chose to convert their cryptos back into fiat, then they were making 1,500 crypto millionaires a day. Now, again, looking back through our rose-tinted goggles, we can kind of see that articles like this, statistics like that, titles like only up rally, probably worth suggesting, as we were trying to call out, that this is not going to last forever. And I dare say that a lot of those newly minted millionaires may be looking down the barrel of a rather red portfolio at the moment, particularly as the article goes on to talk about that a lot of those were generated from meme coins. And I know we've had a little bit of fun with some meme coins, which I'm sure we'll get into later on. But yeah, it just goes to show actually that by not putting in too much, you time it right, you can actually make yourself a millionaire. But unfortunately, as we discussed last week, that's only on paper. Paper millionaires can't buy Bitcoin, can't buy Lamborghinis. We actually need to cash out at some stage. So let this all just be a careful reminder for everybody. And then one just final story to talk about, because I feel like we haven't mentioned them in God knows how long. So I'm looking around because I don't have any water near me. Good old SEC. And this one's a rather interesting one. I don't know if he's on the call, but I've spoken to him about it before, Colt, in our group. He was in Deadbox, which was a crypto project that was sanctioned and sued, or whatever you want to call it, by the SEC last year for, nefarious activities that they just make up on the spot. Well, actually, the case was dropped, but not settling on that. Deadbox have actually raised a case against the SEC, arguing that there was gross abuse of power and effectively, Colt is in the chat, nice to see you, and that they just basically made up evidence to try and support their case. And this sort of goes into suggest here, well, I'll read a little bit of it. The United States District Court has imposed sanctions on the SEC for acting in bad faith in a lawsuit brought against Deadbox. The SEC initially filed a motion to dismiss without prejudice, but that was denied by the judge, who slammed the regulator for intentionally lying to the court about evidence it obtained to secure temporary restraining orders and freezing the assets. So what happened is effectively, back in August when the case set, they basically said, we've got some evidence. We don't want to show you it all just yet. We've got some evidence that these guys are money laundering. We need to get a court injunction to freeze their assets to stop them from being able to move it around. We'll nip this in the bud. Obviously, the court immediately sided with the SEC, thinking that they were acting in good faith and they were telling the truth. Well, it turns out that it was a crock of you-know-what. And Deadbox, they were pretty tarnished, their reputation. They were able to fight and get it back, but at the time, damage is done. Now they're being sued. And I think this just comes as a little bit of a reminder, just because we haven't heard from the SEC in a while. But the view was certainly last year before the ETFs were approved, that they'll do whatever it takes to try and smear the name of crypto. And I don't know enough about Deadbox to know what the project particularly was or what they were doing. But the fact that they would just blatantly just go into a courtroom, lie to a judge, knowing that generally the judge would probably believe them, just so that they could put the stoppers on something and then hope that they could find the evidence afterwards, just goes to show you just what we are battling against, unfortunately. We've had some news today from the FCA, which is nothing as bad as that. But we're battling these agencies. We're battling these firms that are definitely living by two standards. It's okay for institutions, but only the right institutions, only the right assets. But as retailers, we can't be trusted. They're trying to protect us. It kind of feels like really they're trying to get their mates positioned so that they can milk this as best they can, and then we'll just get the dregs that are left. And I think it's fair to say that most of us in here are aware of that, and we are trying our best to ensure that we get our fair share of the pie. So that's kind of it from the news. I'm just going to have to battle on without a drink because I'm pretty damn thirsty. But anyway, we'll go from there. Let's have a quick look. Nick's put, seen the notification from Swissborg, another on-ramp structure. That's what I'm just referring to. And again, if you haven't seen it, I tagged everybody in Discord. But I've talked about using Swissborg as my on and off ramp for crypto for the last 4 years or so. Well, unfortunately, when you went on the app today, they have now got a clear message that says that they do not accept British pounds anymore. You can still withdraw and you can still exchange whatever you've got on there, but you can't deposit. So that basically means that we've lost an on-ramp, and a very good on-ramp. So again, that amount is narrowing down quite significantly. And if you are in the UK and that is of concern to you, again, in Discord, I posted a link from the FCA, which lists 12 FCA registered exchanges, the likes of well, let's just find it, shall we? I can't remember what did we have? We had Gemini, Ziglu, never heard of. Soldi, never heard of. CoinPass, I use for my business account. CoinJar, Kraken, Zumo, eToro, Uphold, Crypto.com, Revolut, Bitstamp. Now, they are the UK registered crypto exchanges. However, looking at some people online, like Market Mobster, they tweeted out earlier that the likes of Coinbase, Nexo, and Gemini are also, at the moment, successful on and off ramps. So, just what I would say is, and I will do some research over the next week or so, just trying to test out some of these. But if you don't have an account with any of these, I would set up an account with 2 or 3, maybe more, because at the moment you can't. You never know if they're just going to turn the tap off, a bit like Bybit did, and went no more new customers. So just set up an account with them. Just make sure you are registered before the FCA closes the door that way. And then, just have to have a look around and see how and if we can do that. But I will start doing a little bit of just sending money to and from. I'm going to try and push the limits of sort of what we know typically banks allow, about £3,000 a day, up to around about £10,000 a month, and just see where the breaker is. Just the final point on that, unfortunately, that's just from the FCA to exchanges. That doesn't, that's one battle. But the biggest battle is our banks even allowing us to do it in the first place, and that has got nothing to do with the other. So even if you do get set up on any of those exchanges, and even if they are allowing deposits of British pounds, fortunately, your bank may stop you. So we know where we all sit with that. We know it's a battle at the moment. I'm hoping that over the next couple of years that will soften, but as it stands at the moment, it just seems to be hardening. Anyway, Jamie's put, imagine being one of those guys with an order at 10k. I know. Well, hey, do you know what? Capo might have actually got filled here, because he's talked about 12k for a while, and if he was on BitMEX and had his orders in there, then this guy's looking, well, maybe not like a god, because he's missed out on 18 months worth of gains, but he can now say, I told you 12k was coming, and it's over. So him, Gareth Soloway, they're all right. We were all wrong. They were right. Well done to them. There's a similar thing happened with, I can't remember if it's Coinbase or Binance US last bull cycle, and it went from 64,000 down to 8,000 in over a second or two. So it's not the first time it's done it. Chris has put, BT sales must have been desperate to sell so rapidly and quickly. I don't know, it's just fat fingered it. Maybe he wasn't trying to market sell. He ended up market selling. Although looking at how that was spread over about half an hour, I'm not sure. I hope the SEC gets completely dismantled, Jamie. Yes, so do I. What about Kraken? Yep, we talked about them as a potential on and off ramp. I've not used them. Someone's actually suggested that in other countries they charge a fee. I don't know if anyone in the UK uses them now and whether they do charge a fee for deposits. But that's something that I will look into and feed back on. Okay, let's move on. And we'll get on to AI later. Let's talk about Bitcoin's price, because it's been a fun one, hasn't it? And so here we are. Bitcoin weekly charts, Bitstamp at the moment. I'll zoom in a little bit, but I just want you to get the sort of the picture from the last bull run to where we are. And we've had that rise up, and it's felt pretty good, especially the last 6 or 7 weeks. But then last week we kind of had a bit of an indecision candle. If you look at it on the weekly, let me just get my marker out. This back here. But the start of this week's, and it's only 2 days, we've seen a fairly decent drop. And let's just have a look from the very top to where we currently sit at the moment. We're looking at approximately 15% to where we dropped to today, but currently around about 14%. So not too bad a drop. But what I would say is definitely not the worst we've experienced. This one to this one was a 22 drop. This one to this one was an almost 22 drop. And this one to this one was a 20% drop. So we have experienced greater drops than this on the weekly time frame, 3 occasions in this run up so far. Why does this one sting so much? Well, the higher we get in price of BTC, those percentage drops equate to larger dollar amounts, so they just seem to sting a lot more. 20% drop from 20,000 is only 4,000. A 20% drop from 73,000 is nearly 15,000. So it psychologically feels worse because it's hitting our dollar amount, our portfolio dollar amount more but ultimately it's not quite representative. So, excuse me, sorry, I will try and hit that button before the bleep button before I sniff down again. But yeah, we have started to see a pullback, and just looking at these occasions here, and I'll get rid of the. We'll get rid of these just so, but in this whole run up since beginning of 2023, we've had these pullbacks before, and they felt pretty bad at the time, and for every time it happened, there seemed to be a reason. But we've come out of it the other side, and we've continued the rise up. And let's face it, since October, this run up has been unbroken. Yeah, we had a little rest period, but it was hardly a pullback. And we've just continued to climb all the way up. And we've talked for ages about how we've needed this pullback. I kind of felt like I was turning into a super bear. And it wasn't. It was just I'm looking for a healthy market, and a pullback's going to do that to help reset some of these indicators. And now we're starting to experience that. So where can we look? Have we reached everything that we need to on this? Is there further room for falling? And last week I talked about that 62 to 58,000 level. Potentially we may get down to 52. But if we have a look at where some of this is going, and we'll try and draw some of these fibs. So we have the fib from this rise up to rise there. I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see it. Actually, it's on the weekly at the moment. Let's just leave it on the weekly. And okay, we've kind of had the pullback to the 236, but it hasn't quite got there yet. Isn't looking right. What was I on the daily previously? Yes, I probably was. Let me just try and tidy this up. Looking a little bit better. That's what I saw earlier on today. So we had that rally up to 73,000 as we discussed, and then we've had this pullback at the moment. That pullback has actually hit quite nicely on one of the Fibonacci levels. Not a major one. 236, but around about 63,000. We could see that bounce from here, and we have in the latter part of today, in the last couple of hours, started to see a bit of a bounce, although we are losing that as we speak. So I think we got to about 65,000. But after this level, we're now talking about some of the zones that I particularly like. Those golden zones, the ones that are colored in orange, and then we're starting to get into some of these figures. 58,000, 63,000 is why we were talking. But also, look right, we have a look at why we think those could be important levels. And I will put back to the weekly just because otherwise it's a bit hard to see some of these candles. So ignore the fibs because they're aligned for the daily. But I kind of feel like we do look right. So we blew past this top. And that breaking of the all-time high prior to the halving is certainly a conversation to be had about, is this time different? That's not what we're here to talk about today. We've always got to keep that in the back of my mind. We do have a look at some of this other, and there's some tops here. Those April tops we talked about. I kind of think that, you could probably pull this just up to there, take it in these tops, how that's kind of interacted, these as well, and then you take it back, and then suddenly, now we'll zoom back in and we'll drop down to the daily. Suddenly we've got that zone again, that zone of interest that we may have just peaked off. That we may have bounced off the top side of that today. We're a little shy of it, but maybe it's not the most accurately drawn because I drew it on the weekly just so I could fit it on the screen. But that's where we got to. We got this, but this is the zone. It takes us down to that 382, round about 58,000 level. I think that's really the key battleground for me. It ties in with a lot of history way back in the last bull run, which, let's face it, because of the height we're at, we don't have too much that we can interact off. So anything above 60,000 had some sort of support for a few days we need to look at. And then we got all the way down to 58, which we talked about last week. And then for me, the absolute Gandalf level, you shall not pass, or we may have to start thinking about what this could mean, is this bit of here, tying in with the 618, round about 50,000. But if we then zoom out again on the weekly, have a look at where that can tie in, hopefully we'll get some sort of confluence. I should really have these as like shortcut keys, shouldn't I? Come back and tidy that one up because it's not where I want it to be. Do it this way. Again, trying to keep it as basic as I can, really. Just where we're looking, but that's tying in with the edges of these head and shoulders. We got where this was retracing down, a few spikes. We had what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weekly candles interacting off this box here. Then we've had all of this here. For me, that feels fairly good. And then, as I say, we'll zoom back in and go back onto the daily. Not exactly there, but it's pretty much on that 618 golden level. So whether or not you just want to go, well, I'll tell you what, Harry, thanks for all of that, but I'm just going to draw a big fat line between that. Fair enough to you. And then a big fat line between the 5 and the 618. Okay, fine. But we're ideally moving ourselves into potential buying zones. And I'm going to just throw one more final thing into the mix there. And that's, we've talked about previously, these 20, we've seen 20% pullbacks. But in previous bear markets, they range up to 20 to sometimes 40%. We normally take the average of 30. So where does 20 to 30% pullback take us in some of these? From the top, 20%. 20%. Let's try and get as accurate as we can. Should have stuck within 19.99 down there. And then let's do 30. Again, same level from the wick. Messing about, right, from the top, 30%. Right, okay. Both of those smacking those zones. Matter of fact, just bear with me while I change this. Let's get those zones back to where I originally drew them, and then we'll redraw those. You can kind of see there's a few little things, you know, some people might argue it's not the most scientific way of doing it, and I'm not here to be super scientific, but ultimately, there's some areas of confluence that I would be interested in. Absolutely interested in. And both of them are smack bang in the middle of those zones we talked about. So there seems to be, this could just be a natural 20 to 30% pullback on our way back up, leading into the halving event. Just feels bad because that's what we're going through, but presenting some ideal buying opportunities. And let's look at it. I mean, some of these prices, you know, if we go back to the end of February, prices are kind of getting to where they were beginning of March, end of February. So if over the last 2 weeks you've seen some prices go, God, I wish I'd bought 2 weeks ago. I'm not sure what your excuse is right now, because we're getting back into those price zones, and you could be presenting yourself with a very opportune buying opportunity. I'm not encouraging anybody to buy now. We're just having to think about where you're going. I've actually, last couple of days, been having a look at some of my portfolio, and I've got rid of a couple of coins just because I was running out of USDT, and there were projects that I am genuinely, seriously, passionately invested in, and I wanted to put some more into it. So, you know, I saw this as an opportunity to do that. And I've not just YOLO'd in at the first time. I've put some buy limit ordered buys in, and, you know, some may hit, some may not, but I see this as an opportunity to buy. And so I'm not panicking. Hopefully none of you guys and girls are panicking either. And actually, we see this for what it is a potential buying opportunity. And for those of you that say it's over, it is the bear market time, I just remember Bitcoin ETFs, okay, the spot ETFs. This is the unknown. The je ne sais quoi, whatever you want to say about it. Something that's never happened before in Bitcoin's life cycle. And these people are still buying, okay? So, well, except for Grayscale, they're still selling, but they've got enough to sell. So the fact that BlackRock are still buying, okay? Still buying. Yesterday, they increased their holding by 7,000 Bitcoin. That was BlackRock. So BlackRock are in green, and so I've just dumbed them down. They're the ones we'll go from. So even yesterday on a red day, they're still buying. Okay, they're not bothered. Still buying. This candle is still going up and up and up. And okay, at the moment, Grayscale is still selling. So that's eating into some of that supply pressure. But as I said, at some stage, Grayscale will stop. Now, whether or not that's timed with when BlackRock stopped buying, BlackRock et al., we'll have to wait and see. But as long as there is buying pressure from the likes of BlackRock, Fidelity, ARK, 21 shares, whoever you want to champion as your ETF champion, then we're going to see overall the price continue to climb up. But the other side of it is they're still buying, but the price has temporarily gone down. There's still some need to sell. And ultimately, ETFs, they're not robots. They are still humans that are not maybe exposed to this level of volatility, shall we say. And so maybe they got a bit spooked and they wanted to sell. Now, I'd like to think that they're more seasoned investors, but we don't know. And there have been some net outflows over this period. I don't have the right chart to show the net outflows, I don't think. I won't bother with it. There have been some net outflows over the last couple of days, so we know that there has been a bit of selling, and not just from Grayscale. But overall, everybody's still on the net positive. I remember to mute this time when I sniffed. So yeah, I'm feeling fairly comfortable. I'm happy with where it's going. I don't feel like we've seen enough of a pullback yet, if I'm perfectly honest. We are starting to cool off, so we're back into the high 70s at the moment. Still extreme greed, 75. I'd kind of like to see us get down into the mid to low 60s, if I'm honest, and really start to cool off from a fear and greed point of view. I've got a feeling today is probably going to help with that. But we are moving in the right direction. I'm not panicking. I'm fairly comfortable with where this sits. What's the next chart? Oh, I already did that one. It's clean. I should have used that one. Why have I drawn those lines? Not sure. But that's just showing the pullbacks on the daily. And again, I will do it quickly because most of you know it, but I do appreciate there may be some of you that weren't around for previous cycles. Okay, and this is the one I want to talk about. This run up that Bitcoin experienced. If I can find it, here we go. End of 2020 into 2021. This, for anyone that was part of it, it was both exhilarating and scary at the same time because we were still in lockdown, still unsure what the financial picture was going to look like, and yet Bitcoin just did not seem to care. And it was only a few months later we started to realize that, this was a thing. But these pullbacks, face melting climbs up from 18,000 to 42,000 in 2.5 weeks, and then from 42,000 all the way back down to 28,000, so $14,000 loss, or around about 30% within the space of 2 weeks again. And it just kept on happening. This was a 31% pullback, and then we would climb again, and then we'd have a 26.5%, 27% pullback, and then it would happen again, and we would have 18% pullback, and then unfortunately that's where we peaked. Went down 26%. We didn't quite recover it. Dead cat bounce. We went into the end of the first top in 2021. But even, let's face it, even this was a recoverable fallback. It took a lot longer, but this was a 50% drop. It took 6 months to get over that. We saw ourselves climbing back out, and even on the way back, even on the way to 69k, big drops again, 25. You get the point, but 16%. So they happen, and we can only go off the information that we have in front of us. The sentiment still, although we have been extremely greedy, does feel like we've still got the momentum for an overall bull market ahead of us. And so these aren't major corrections and into a bear market. This is just a pullback. Pullbacks like we've seen 3 other occasions throughout 2023 and 2024. And that's how we need to treat it. That's certainly how I'm going to be treating it. In terms of sort of other sentiments and other areas that we can look at, things, well, if we go on to the 12-hour, kind of see we're just wrestling with the 50 EMA at the moment on the 12-hour. We have gone and lost it. It's not really an hour time frame that I personally use, but I know a lot of people in the group do. So we take it on to the daily. And for me, that 50 EMA, which again hasn't been hit since beginning of February, we're getting, mid to end of March at the moment, so almost 2 months. Looking at 59,000. Well, between that 60 and 58,000, what falls in the middle? 59,000. Perfect level. A couple of vector candles to consider recovering there. And then one of the things that we haven't really spoken about, but we did in the group, I'm going to have to just hide a few of these just to clean it up. Should just hit them all, really, shouldn't I? I feel like this one's probably starting to play out already, but for those of you that are active in Discord, you've seen us potentially talk about hump, head, hump, broken through, bit of a Kobo at the moment. Maybe we start to see that further falling. And if it were just going off the head and shoulders, we can take a rough estimate of how far we might fall by just duplicating the neck to the peak of the head to the neck, grip it, put it down here, and then that gives us a level in and around 57,000. So that would see us actually break through the 50 EMA. As we now put these back on, we'll be looking somewhere around there if I put it back on the daily now. But again, might still be within the cloud, certainly taking out one of the vector candles, maybe even spiking a little bit lower. So again, we've got some potential targets, and we just need to see really how today's closes, especially for this head and shoulders. We've lost the neckline, we're battling and we've lost the 50 EMA line on the 12-hour, heading towards it on the daily, and effectively now it's just to see where we are in the next 3.5 hours time. Kind of gives a bit of an indication where we may be heading towards. But as I said last week, and I've said for 36 minutes today, personally, it's nothing to worry about. And if you don't like it, just don't look at your portfolio for a few weeks, but don't panic sell everything. If you're going to sell because you want to move into something else, there's buying opportunities, absolutely fine. That's all about risk management and seeing a better opportunity somewhere. You can't win every trade. You just cut your losses, move into something you have a better conviction about. That's trading. That's absolutely fine. But just seeing a downwards movement over a couple of days and thinking, I've got to just dump and not have a plan of why you're dumping, typically you're going to get caught out doing that. So just bear that one in mind going forward. And iBlock's been a bit interesting because, last week we were in uncharted territories, but we were seeing a lot of longs building up in and around about that 66 down to 60k level. Some of them are still building up. And so obviously this price movement over the last, zoom into it, it's a little bit bigger. So this movement down over the last sort of 3 or 4 days has just been targeting those, but actually, now what we're seeing, that's it. It's over. Sentiment on crypto, Twitter that's it, major correction time. And so we're starting to see the shorts start to build up. And, those liquidation points just under 75,000 starting to build up. Doesn't mean we'll head there straight away, but now we're starting to produce targets. And, for the last 7 weekly candles, the market makers have not had the volatility that they crave to make the most out of this, because of the ETF hype driving things along. But now they're being able to create a bit of volatility, bit of a movement down, creating that uncertainty. Right, everyone's just jumping on the shorts. Suddenly they've got something to target to on the longs. And all those longs they've been building up for the last 7 weeks, they're getting paid on now. Or they had the shorts, should I say. Prices coming down, they're getting paid on those. So it's all working out for them in the long run. Let's have a look at some questions. Okay, so we're back to exchanges. So Kraken, okay. So Stuart's used them a couple of weeks, no problems getting money in. Brilliant to know. Barclays to Coinbase seems okay. Well, that's good to know. I don't have a Coinbase account, but I'll set one up because I am a Barclays. So thanks for that, 488. I always get a call from the Ford team. I preempted it with Swissborg and rang them. So with Barclays, I rang them to talk about Swissborg. So maybe that's the same. Barclays to Kraken, Coinbase, think small amounts often seems okay. Well, that's good to know. And we'll see. Someone in Discord mentioned about using Coots, the Royal Bank, and as long as you sign a form, you can send what you want. But I think someone mentioned that you need to have $1 million in assets expected within the next 12 months. So that might be a stumbling block for some of us. We'll just have to wait and see. We'll come back to some more charts a little bit later on, but let's just keep this moving, shall we? Let's talk about AI, because inevitably that will lead to some price as well. So crypto bull runs, even bear markets, I suppose, always have narratives. They do. So in 2017, it was the ICO narrative, and many of them. And then in 2020, 2021, we had the layer ones, and we also had the GameFi and DeFi, I suppose. DeFi was kind of like DeFi and then DeFi 2.0. But we had a couple of narratives that really helped move the bull market forward. And that's where people targeted and actually made a significant amount of money. And so the question that we were asking even a year ago is, what are the narratives going to be for the 2024, 2025 bull run? And one of the ones we talked about and we identified was amongst others, was AI, artificial intelligence. And that is something that has absolutely taken a life of its own. We'll have a look at some charts a little bit later on that kind of show that. But it seems at the moment that anything in the AI sector can effectively do no wrong. I mean, ignore the red on this at the moment. We'll have a look at where they stand a little bit later. But we have seen significant growth in the sector. And we've seen that because of the rise of AI outside of Web3, so in Web2. The acceptance, adoption, whatever you want to call it, ChatGPT, and all the iterations gone through there, Google Bard, if you want to talk about that. We've seen Elon Musk, buying tens of thousands of Nvidia, which we'll get into later, GPUs, so that they can have their own AI system as well. We've even started to see the robotic side of AI with actual robots incorporating AI to, be able to, interact in a more, I don't say humane, but that's not the word I'm looking for, lifelike, I don't know, manner. And so the outside world is accepting, maybe adopting AI. It's becoming, almost second place in a lot of our lives, particularly in anything that can do to provide short bursts of information very quickly. So you think about question and answers on the likes of ChatGPT or any other kind of question. I think general public is very accepting of that. But obviously we know there's so much more wider implications in what AI can do. And the Web3 space, the crypto space, has been very quick to jump on that. And I think AI works very well with crypto because there's almost a bad boy image about it as well. Whilst there is good behind it, there seems to just be a negative stigma, predominantly done by sci-fi movies, of course. We can all think of the Terminator and the Matrix and all those kind of things that suggest that, at some stage there will be some singularity event and AI will be the worst thing that we ever invented and we'll curse the day that we ever did. And, kind of feels a bit like crypto at the moment. There's definite good within it, but we're just tarnished with a bit of a bad brush. And so seems like a marriage made in heaven. And for those of us that have got into it, and I think most of us can say that a decent percentage of our portfolios are AI based, we've already started to reap the benefits from that. And it is starting to spread far and wide, because now what we're starting to see is people trying in any way they can to align a crypto project that probably isn't to do with AI to just have it AI related so that it can fit within this sector. And we see that certainly in meme coins. And hey, meme coins aren't as bad as everyone makes out, but we certainly see that within meme coins and people trying to help eat up some of that market share just by associating themselves with AI projects. We see some of the, you look at the layer ones like Near Protocol, which everybody knows I'm a big fan of. But when I first went into Near Protocol, maybe it did have some, very strong narratives within the AI sector, but I would say that was not foremost within their marketing, within the direction that they were informing people. Maybe I just missed it. But now, it's top of the pile in the AI sector on CoinMarketCap, and that's where it's being pushed towards. So we're starting to see that, but we're also starting to see these fantastic partnerships, Render and Apple. Render's a fantastic project in itself and just what it can do, and the genuine real world uses that Web 2 can use, and just that bringing of Web 2 and Web 3 together. But I think the biggest partnership that put them on the map, certainly with the launch, was with Apple Vision Pro and the goggles, and sort of what Render's doing there. And of all of the AI projects, I think Render has probably seen one of the biggest growths. Now, I will be corrected on that, I'm sure, because Render was already a top 100 token. Most of these other ones have come from the 200s, 300s, and have climbed the ranks the hard way to get into the top 100. But we can see in this list alone that just shy. So the top 10 AI tokens sit within the top 103 cryptocurrencies. If you take out all the stable coins and Bitcoin and some of the old ones, that a few weeks ago when we did that sort of movers and shakers in terms of how hard it is to move into the top 100, you probably only get around about 25 to 30 spaces. And I would argue that this time 4 years ago, none of them were in the top 100. So the fact that they're climbing in is a very good sign to see. Now, I've gone on to banter bubbles, which I don't normally use. Normally I use crypto bubbles, but you can use categories within here. And just to kind of show you the level of growth. So this is just different categories: metaverse, DeFi, sexes, NFTs, layer ones, exchanges, stablecoins, etc. Who's leading the charge? Of course it is. It's AI. So even after the kicking that they got this week, as everyone else did, it's still the biggest sector over the last 365 days. 700 overall, 725% increase. You know, 8x on your overall position from where it's gone, which is fantastic to see. And memes, if we drop this down to like the month, obviously memes have had a huge month. So memes take the lead with 165, and AI is on a paltry 2x, 113, but still done very well. And you can sort of drift and adjust some of those. I think these are good snapshots. If you just do like, you can go through, you can do top 100. It'll give you everything as it's moving. So if you've never seen this before, banter bubbles or crypto bubbles, it just gives you a visual representation of the growth over the week, month, today, even over the last hour. And you can customize it as you see fit. So, there's not much that's really moved well in the last hour or two, which we know because it's been a tough day today. But whilst it's got nothing to do with it, I was pleasantly surprised to see, not there, what did I have it on? Maybe? Yes, there it is, on the week. Tau Inu. And it's only in the top 300 of meme coins, but it's had a pretty big uplift. A lot of others in this last week are deep in the red. And Tau Inu, there it is, 40% up. So I know a lot of us in the group hold that. I know a lot of us are hoping for decent returns. I'm going to caveat, temper everything, just decent returns. But a listing on Mexi today didn't go too bad considering the market. As we see over the last 7 days, it's up pretty well. And that's, for those of us that have been in and out of Tau Inu a while, we know actually the last 4 weeks been fairly volatile for it. So good to see there. But if we have a look at some of these AIs on the chart, just to give you a visual representation of it, of how they've done, looking at, I'm not going to bother going through. I just want to kind of just impress upon you how well the AI sector is doing. Near, render, Tau, the graph, theta, fetch, Akash, singularity, Oasis network. There's a theme here of just absolutely flew up. This is on the daily chart. So some of them have had a sort of a linear growth from October. Some of them have been more recent. But what we can see as we're going through these is pretty much all of them just have an almost straight line up. And okay, I'm on the linear chart here, so I'm cheating a little bit. But I'm trying to emphasize a point here. That we are seeing some good movements. Now, Veracity, as an example, had a hell of a move up, but a hell of a move back down. And actually, this has fallen quite hard. So, those of you that believe Veracity fully sits within the AI sector, and there's an opportunity to take advantage of that, touching on the 50-year EMA there as well, maybe an ideal opportunity. But even for a lot of these, I'll take FET, for example, which, someone talked about if they could go back and write a book of messing up trades. For those of you who remember, beginning of February, I came on here and said, I'm just going to wait. I'm not going to buy Fetch because they've had that liquidation. They've gone into administration in the UK. They are moving to Dubai, blah, blah, blah. I just want to wait to see the dust settle. The dust did not settle. And so it went from 50 cents to over $3. So it's having a fairly good pullback at the moment, and it will be something that I will be looking try and now position myself in. I've just got to cut ties with the 55 cents. It's a strong project in a strong sector. This has still got plenty of room to run. And having a good pullback, I didn't get it at the bottom today, but a 31% pullback is not to be sniffed at in terms of finding that position to get in. And that's the whole point of these pullbacks in the bull markets, is trying to take advantage of those, trying to take advantage of maybe sidestepping, or not sidestepping, taking profit and then reallocating that profit at the ideal opportunity. And this could well be it. Now, again, as we're exiting and entering the market, you're never going to hit the very top, you're never going to hit the very bottom. So it's about accepting that we've seen a decent pullback And now it's just how well has this particular token fared against others in this pullback, and how well has it recovered. And generally that is a good sign of if a project has a strong future ahead of it. And I do believe this one is one of those. So just as an example there, Fetch AI, it's definitely something I want to get in on. It'll be well out of date, but if any of you are interested and don't know much about it, I actually did a research token on it. You can go into the Avenger chat, pull up the token sheet, give you a link to it. They were Cambridge based, as I mentioned. They have moved now to the Middle East. Then we get this. Probably most of you will be aware that this is happening, but most of you will have not bothered to tune in to have a look at this. So this is it, the Nvidia GTC, okay, the conference, the Nvidia Conference taking place this week in America, and the crypto space is buzzing. I mean, absolutely buzzing. We had people last week talking about it, people just buying random AI tokens, just thinking, we've got Nvidia talking next week, so, this is going to be huge for crypto, so let's buy in. And it wasn't just our group, all over Twitter, all over YouTube, people just mentioned this, but this is where I see the wrong side of it, because, and just personal opinion here, I know, does this really have anything to do? Is this conference, well, let me rephrase that. Why is a Nvidia conference necessarily going to pump crypto space more than, say, the Miami Bitcoin conference, which is like arguably the biggest conference of the year for cryptocurrencies and certainly for Bitcoin? And then when you look into a bit more detail, what's the level of exposure of cryptocurrencies of Web3 actually at Nvidia? And I kind of feel that this is where maybe hype just detaches from reality somewhat. And again, I might be wrong here, I accept that. But I think we've just taken two events together which are loosely connected, gone, this is going to be an absolute firestorm for what we want it to be. And so we'll just buy some random stuff and it'll hit next week. And it just isn't the case. Yes, Nvidia. Okay, what do? Well, primarily they make graphics cards, okay? And for those of you, Jamie, turn away now. This is going to hurt. He knows why. Can't find it. There it is, Nvidia. So, they make graphics cards and business is booming, okay? In end of 2022, it was $108. We just tipped under $1,000 not so long ago. They are the third, if not the second largest company in the world. Okay, they do what they do very well. There are competitors, AMX, a few others, but these guys seem to have, at the moment, cornered the market. They deliver a very superior product, and they made a smart decision. It was not very well thought of a couple of years ago when they announced it, and they said they were stepping back, not away, but stepping back from a cryptocurrency mining focus, which is a lot of what their focus was, particularly during the last bull run, making graphic cards for mining machines, not for Bitcoin mining, but for other cryptocurrencies. And they decided not to, and they took a more AI-related focus. So they were providing the hardware for processing powers. And as I mentioned earlier, Elon Musk, and I think it is Twitter, it might be Tesla, I don't know, we're buying tens of thousands of graphic cards. And these graphic cards are not cheap to help the processing power, because these AI systems need an awful lot of processing power. And so they've done well, and they are related to AI, and we have a lot of AI projects. And so people have just gone, it's got to work. This week's going to be a big week for us. And I just challenge, why people think that and where it is. And maybe it's the fact that we're just so caught up in the hype. Now, I'm going to spare you all of this because I went through everything, all 1,708. And scroll down, it just keeps on going. And I was going through to just try and find guest speakers that were talking there that were at crypto-related companies. Now, I'm not saying that there weren't some. I couldn't see any except for one that jumped off the page, and I looked at nearly 1,000 webinars, 1,000 presentations. Now, of course, there may be some, individuals that are based with another company that just have ties to a cryptocurrency later on. I absolutely get that. So there may be some, but it isn't an out-and-out sales pitch for cryptocurrency. That's the point I'm trying to make. And so we've just got to be careful that we don't just, confirmation bias, that cognitive decision making, that because we think that there's a very strong relationship between the two, it must mean that it's going to be positive for us. And it's not necessarily the case. Now, so key speakers, I thought, okay, well, maybe we'll be in the sponsors. So I went through the entire sponsorship package from the Diamond Elites all the way down to the bronze. Not one crypto company that I'm aware of. I'm not saying there weren't some, was a sponsor at all in any capacity there. So, and it was exhibitors. I thought I'd go through all these are guest speakers. I don't know where the exhibitor page has gone. It's not there. Couldn't find it. There's just one. And this is the one that gets bandied around on crypto Twitter. And it's great because, hey, it's the doing near protocol. But there is on the main stage for the main discussion. So not this. Let me just go back. And it's on the front page as well of theirs. So this, the Transforming AI panel hosted by Jensen Yang on Wednesday. It's like the keynote speech, if you will. And there it is. Ilya Polyoskin, I butchered his name and I apologize, from Near Protocol. And everyone's talked about, the CEO from Near Protocol says this is going to be great. It may well be great for Near. And I do think that there's definitely some opportunity for render, because there's actually an entire rendering category in which Apple are speaking quite heavily within. And I'm sure that someone would like to at least shoehorn in that Render the project is involved within that. But this isn't an out-and-out sales pitch for cryptocurrency. So, we're already in day 2 of 4 at the moment. And, we'll see where it goes. Hey, maybe the boom will come after tomorrow and maybe into Thursday on the last day. Maybe I'm just completely wrong. But I just think that huge amount of hype that crypto space is giving this one particular conference may just be because we've been caught up by this hype. And now this hype is real, despite the pullback, because there's some great things being done. With huge hype becomes that fear and greed, or certainly the greed side of it, and we just attach anything to it. So, I'm just trying to temper. That's all I do, is just temper things. What I will say, the market cap, you remember when we were first getting into BitTensor, I can't remember when it was, September, October, maybe August. The overall AI market cap was like $7 or $8 billion. We're now at $40 billion. I still think this is hugely underwhelming, if I'm honest. $40 billion for AI, I think this is going to massively pump. So I do see these numbers. If this is it, if this is the top 10, and then we're pretty much all in the top 100, then I see these really climbing the ranks. And we could see maybe a couple of them into the top 20, maybe some even into the top 10. We shall wait and see. Right, okay. Got to that there. I feel my mouth just drying up, so apologies. Unfortunately, we're not quite done. Okay, I'm going to get on to a couple of questions, try and get through these quick scan, then we'll go to charting. But if anyone has anything they want me to have a look at or talk about, then I will try and do that. So John's asked a couple of things. Would you mind covering some TA on Tesla? It looks like a good buying opportunity. Could we go for TA and a couple of other charts? And then a recap of my current percentage of portfolio would also be great. Okay, so yes, okay. I'm going to start with Tesla because I'm not going to offer anything on this. 2 reasons why. I know that Simon doesn't do it because he has concerns about what he should and should be saying, and I respect that, and so not my place to do it if he doesn't want to do it himself. But 2, I don't really follow it that well, but look at it from a TA point of view, I mean, I'm just going to leave this chart on here. You know what I look for whilst I talk about this, and I think there's plenty of clues in here as to answer your question, John, whilst I tell you why I won't be directly talking about it. But yeah, for me, it's, unless it's in their headlines, I don't really necessarily follow it. And whilst, of course, there is TA, and I believe that TA definitely plays out, there's always fundamentals that you necessarily may need to consider. What I do know from reading, I do believe that they haven't done as well in terms of their sales, and a few other sort of targets they may not have hit, which may reflect badly in terms of the price and where that may go in the very near future. But overall, this seems to be a project that has big swings and big dips, but generally, like most things, just keeps on climbing, keeps on chugging along. So depends on what your intentions are for purchasing it. I know people like to have this in their SIPs or whatever and feel that it's a long-term hold. from a pension point of view. But yeah, John, I'm afraid I can't really give you the TA that perhaps you want on that one. What I can talk about is Glimmer. Talk about that cryptocurrency. So 2 reasons. 1, crypto. Talk about 2, project I like and a project I'm into. It's a project that I follow. And we're on the daily chart at the moment here, and we've seen a real bottoming down here, around about 16 cents in that October-November time. And just prior to the Halloween effect, we had a scary pump up, which caught me out actually. Flew up to around about 30 cents, and thankfully it came all the way back down, and I was able to buy on the way back down here. But since then, we've had some really stellar strong moves up, retested the 50 EMA, taken a nice little breather on it, strong move up. Yeah, okay, we've traced back 50 EMA. We've had another strong move up, another local high, and look what we did today. We retested that 50 EMA. And so for me, just going off what's happened previously, this has set itself up for a very good, strong move up. And the market's going to continue in that direction. As I say, nice pullback here to a very strong area of support, and then off it can climb back up. However, the only thing I would caveat that with is at the moment, we'll see how the next couple of candles go. But if we start to see that these candles start to drift down, then you could argue we might have an M formation underneath the 50 EMA on the daily. Then we could be talking about a completely different picture, unfortunately, and we may want that to go. But right now, as it stands, today's candle, we've hit that 50 EMA, and previously, yeah, okay, we might have lingered around it a little bit underneath it. Typically, we find a very strong footing from that, and we climb back up. So at the moment, I'm feeling particularly good. Haven't really added to Glimmer. Interesting when you get to have a look at my portfolio in a minute. A lot of these ones that I invested in throughout 2022 are getting smaller and smaller from a portfolio size, just because I'm happy with the size of the bag that I have, and I'm now just looking at new projects to get in. There is a side of it as well in which some of them aren't moving as fast as some of the other ones. It's fair enough. Aren't all moving at the same speed, but that's where that one's going. Another one in the Polkadot ecosystem is, of course, Polkadot, which, if you don't know by now that I'm the resident Polkadot moon boy, I don't even know what you're doing here. But again, we had a fairly painful bear market for Polkadot, and we can't say anything else. Now, I might give this one a little bit more. We had fall from grace of that's part of 93-94%. So altcoins anywhere from 85 to 99% fallback. This one mid-90s, so definitely fell a bit harder than a lot of some of the other ones, but still within that range. Fell hard. It wasn't really set up. It pumped high because of the parachains, and the parachains happened to manifest themselves at the peak of the bull market. So at the highest that DOT could possibly be, it fell away from itself from a price action point of view, but then the thing that it based itself on was an ecosystem, also kind of fell away. But they've spent the last couple of years, they've been doing a lot of soul searching, development, and they are actively working at the moment to come up with Polkadot 2.0, which is going to be released in the next couple of months, I would say. We keep on hearing around about summer of this year, so it is looking good. Looking at it from a TA, Polkadot 2.0, done a video on it. Fundamental changing in how you rent time and processing power on the Polkadot system. So moving away from the parachains, as we mentioned, the auction system, more looking at core time, but also how that works. There's a more detailed video on it, and I don't want to necessarily waste any time going through it right now, but I think some very positive changes. And what we're starting to see is it is climbing. Now, I know the likes of Solana gone from $8 to $200. So hey, that's a layer one that has done well. We're not there. We've gone from $3.50 to $12. So 3x. But we're building something here, and there's some structure in the way that we are building this, and it's very similar to Glimmer, which you would expect given their relationship. We've had strong moves and recoveries back to the 50 EMA, strong moves. We lost it here, but what did we catch ourselves on? Caught ourselves on the 800. might be the 200, that one. I've got a new set, so I can't remember which way my colors are at. I think it's the 200. And again, bounced strongly from that. We've created a new local high. We've come back down, and we are sitting perfectly on the $9 level at the moment. Now, for me, $9 is key. We hold this $9 level, and I think there's going to be a very strong foothold. It may even be a level where people look back on and go, that was the one opportunity we had to get back in. I'm not buying any more DOT. I've got arguably far too much. So I'm just happy with where it's going at the moment. But as I say, that sort of $9 level that we're sitting at on the 50 EMA, I mean, let's just take it all the way to like $9.20. We've got scraggly bit, which is probably where my face is. No, it's not. My face is lower. Back in June 22, a little bit of a hump through there, and then previously that's where our previous local high was, and now we're continuing that uptrend. So if we can hold this, see, that's a fantastic foothold, and I really don't think that $16 is that far of a stretch now. In terms, there's nothing really in the way. This was 12. We've already. Let me just put this on the weekly so you guys can see it a bit clean. So yeah, so we've already beat 12, which was what I was trying to draw here. So really that 16 level is now where I'd be looking as to build from. That's kind of up here. And so what I've done is I have unstaked half of my Polkadot. 28 days to unstake it. Once that completes, annoyingly, I unstaked some and then restaked it, but we are where we are. Unstaked half. I'm going to unstake it all over time, and I'm going to move it to the likes of Kraken, where I can still stake it. I don't get the higher returns, but I can unstake it in hours rather than in months. And it kind of feels like the way this is moving and how close it's getting to some of my take profit zones, I need to be in a bit more of a fluid position to take advantage of those. So that's just where it is from that. But again, some positive returns. Now, in terms of market, sort of rises, etc. I mean, I'm not going to get caught out, I think we're fitting. I mean, I would argue that this is all one rise and this is it. We're back in here, and then we're potentially looking at some sort of second rise and a retest at the moment. So we're maybe in consolidation part before we get into price. Sorry, but we shall wait and see on where that sits at the moment. The other one you want me to have a look at was Alpha Zero. So this one, unfortunately, is more underwhelming. And actually, I sold all my Alpha Zero yesterday. It was one of the ones that I just decided to cut my losses on it, and it was a loss. It's about a 20% loss. I'd rather invest it, so it's already been sold and put into something else right now. But for me, I just wasn't really happy with how the price action had gone overall compared to a lot of the other tokens over that same period. And perhaps it's just because this fall here was a lot sharper than others, where others consolidated over Christmas and into January. This actually fell quite strong. We never really recovered, and what I'm looking at it from this point of view is some sort of two tops there, potentially. Retesting it back down. So I might have sold it exactly the wrong time because it might just bounce back up here, and that's fine. But I wanted to sell because I had to have a look at some of the assets I had, and I wanted to move into something else, and I made that decision. It's not sat in USDT, otherwise I might as well have just stayed in it and seen what happened. It's already gone into something else. So that's just unfortunately the way it is. But right now it is certainly on the downwards leg of a potential M, and it's right at that neckline at the moment, and it may well bounce from that. But if you're looking at entry points, if we don't keep this level here, there's not really much keeping it, aiming for sort of like 85. Maybe you might even get lucky if you put a low ball in down around about 70, down where it's bottom previously. Might be somewhere to have a look. Now, in terms of John, you want me to have a look at my portfolio. This is it. So the one on the left is my personal ones, and the one on the right is my business one. The business one's pretty simple. It's 100% Bitcoin. So that's it. It's there. On the left, so there is some BTC. For those of you that do follow or do listen to what I have to say, I sold a lot of my BTC at 50,000. But then last week I had that internal dilemma about what I was going to do with NEAR when it was at $8.30. I took my own advice and I sold it into BTC. Which is why I have a bit of BTC at the moment. So Polkadot's around about 25%, NEAR's around about 20, BitTensor's around about 20. The BitTensor doesn't include the staking rewards. I just haven't moved that into my portfolio yet, so I might shift it a little bit. Rose is at 5%. Still got USDT because I've been moving and shaking some things around, and I've put a bit to one side in case you see some further drops. That's around about 7%. And then Moonbeam at 4%. I've got Render, I've got Casper, Tau Inu, HBAR, Nakamoto Games, Pal AI, Pith, and then Entangled. So Entangled's the one I talked about last week. I'm slowly building a bigger position within this. So a lot of, it's actually not taken over. So I sold a 0 today for Entangled, but it hasn't updated. I mean, this is just me manually putting it in, but I thought I've taken it off. I thought I'd added it, but I haven't. But that's probably 2% now. Manta's going to go as well. I like it. I've made a bit of money from it, but I prefer where Entangled may go more. So I'm going to put it into there. And then a little bit of Qubit because that was just a bit of a degen play. So I obviously got a lot more than most people in the group. Interesting points to note. NEAR was originally 5%. It's now 21 because it's grown so well. DOT has grown a little bit. I mean, NEAR would have been ahead of DOT had I not sold that BTC. Rose, I think, was only about 2%. It's now 5%. And you think about it's 5% in dollar value as well. So it's shown some really good growth there. And Render was a tiny, it was 0.5%. That's all I put into it. And this thing has flown. And it's one of those ones I bought at $1.40. I wish I bought more, but I just put a little bit in. Just because I liked the project. And I did a research token on it and I liked it. So I put some in and then it took off. So yeah, so that's it. Where will things go? Ones that I'm Pal.ai, I'll probably just keep it because there's a little bit of AI and it's not offending me. I like Piff. I'm building up Piff. So Piff's my link replacement. So that's getting built up. Entangled, very similar to Piff actually. It's got a few other strings to its bow, but Oracle's is one of them. So that is being built up. It's not quite right at the moment. Manta's going to go into that. Cubic I'll probably cut at some stage. I like Nakatomi Games. So fine. Hedra HBAR. I'm a bit indifferent about that one. If I do need some, I may sell that. But remember, I've still got nearly 7% now in USDT. And the rest of it is happy. You know my views on Casper, but where is Casper? There. 2.4%. I've got some. Hey, if I'm wrong and you guys are right, I want a slice of that action as well. So why not have a little bit? So yeah, that's where it sits, John. Hope that helps. Alan's put, have you checked out Space Mash? Now, Alan, I haven't. I then went to look for Space Mash and I couldn't find it anywhere. So, did you mean Space Mesh? And you just a typo. I don't know. I'm going to answer it as if you did. So, it's here. It's a layer 1. I saw it on CoinMarketCap. It's also on CoinGecko. CoinGecko actually tells you a bit of a better story in the fact that this thing came out in November 2023 rather than earlier on this week. It must have just been listed on CoinMarketCap. There's nothing I can really find out about it. I mean, in terms of stuff that I look for, I don't know what the market cap is. I don't know what the circulating supply is. I don't know what the total supply is. I only know that the max supply is 2.4 billion. So it's not really helping me at the moment. Now, I did have a quick look since it's a layer 1. I was like, well, what is it? Proof of work, proof of stake. It's weird. It's proof of space-time. Okay? As if this thing's some sort of continuum. And I don't know what proof of space-time is. So I don't really know. And there is a white paper that I've not got round to reading through yet. It feels like it's quite a long one, but hopefully somewhere... proofs of space-time. Here we go. We might learn something together. You know what? I was hoping there's going to be something. Okay, let's have a look. At a high level, a proof of space-time is a proof that a node allocated a certain amount of space, S, towards participating in a mining process over a given period of time, T. Okay. The node's space-time resource is computed as ST. Loosely speaking, okay. I mean, I realize it's probably quite dull to read. It's dull to read for me. I suppose my one question is, what makes proof of space-time better than proof of stake or whatever, how that works, you know, in terms of just managing the entire network, blockchain, etc. I'd have to look into it. I don't even know if this is a token you're particularly want me to look at, but in short answers, I've not looked into it. If it is decent and it's something that you actually are in yourself, then let me know. And if you want my advice on it, I'll be more than happy to do that. But because you said space mash and this is mesh, I don't want to waste too much time, just in case. So I hope you help with that. Interesting that Bitcoin, yeah, it's still starting to fall a little bit since we've been discussing things. Italian news down a little bit as well. We'll get to those a little bit later. There's another question I'm sure not certain bit. Dave has put in the group, and it's just more of a public announcement than anything else. So Dave asked in the group, could I post my take profit levels based off the near? And I said that they were in Discord, and they were, but that channel's been archived, so they're not there anymore. So I will get them out for you. Now, how I've done those, there's a profit taking section, and I have a set of profit taking charts. And I've even done a video. Try and find it. Yeah. I've done a video on how I determined what my profit levels were. So if you go into Vimo, I know it doesn't look like this to you. And then, there we go. So it's this one here, the 3-pot on profit taking. That was done in October 23 when I created some of these about 6 months ago. That just kind of explains how I choose my profit levels, so that when you look at this chart, so here's the near one. So, I mean, I don't mean to pat myself on the back, but that was actually turned out to be a belting take profit zone. And I'm actually already in my head, we'll resell the BTC back into near and just have some more near, because I like near. I do, can't help myself. But yeah, so it's done on previous price levels and also on fib retracements. And I kind of have a little bit of a narrative. So there's near, there's link, Rose, dot. I don't think there was one. I don't know the BTC. There were some others that unfortunately I got rid of, but I thought they were in the group. So they just need to be looked at. And I don't know why BNC hasn't saved, but I'll get all the updated ones in there. Watch the video if you're actually interested in how I came up with those. There's a little bit now that, just be advised, these are more accurate than the video. The video was set 6 months ago. So things may have been tweaked as I've looked at them. Generally, we're kind of getting there. And you can kind of see my first take profit zone. The dot is $20, which, you know, $9 may seem a long way off, but if we get to $20, I got 28 days to unstake it. So that's why I just want to move some across now. So I'm ready for that. And link, obviously, I'm not in anymore. But there was some fairly good returns. Matter of fact, look at that. Look at, you know, bear in mind I did this 6 months ago. I don't mean to pat myself on the back. It's probably longer. I set my 2 take profits at 0.5 and 618, and both of those beautifully. I didn't bother with the 381, 382, sorry, because I was so confident in it. But that would have been another great level. And the point that you're trying to make, look, is I'm tooting my own horn. You find yourself a take profit level, and then you either cash it back or you go back in. So had I done like the others with 382, you could take profit. It went all the way back down to 236, ideal buying opportunity. Back up to the 5. It didn't make it down until after it hit the 618. Oh no, it didn't quite hit the 618, but then it made it back down to 382. Could have bought yourself back in. Shot straight back up to 618, and now it's coming back down to 382. So, you know, these are not all the time going to be, I'm taking them all the way back to the bank. It's just places that I think you'd see a logical place for them to turn around based off Fibonacci's and previous price action. So in those examples, sadly, I'm not in Chainlink anymore. They've worked out quite well. They don't always work out that way. And, you know, if that's the case, no one goes poor taking profit. You just send it back to your bank and you treat yourself. And yeah, that's me tooting my own horn. Let's have a look at some questions. Off topic, but do you think the likelihood the MicroStrategy getting added to the S&P 500 last Friday? What do you think the likely last Friday? Did they get added? Or do you mean this Friday? I assume it would be announced towards the end of April and be implemented on Thursday. 488, do you know what? Whatever that is has gone straight. You know, I've not seen anything of that. That is something that I will jump straight on tomorrow and have a look at. This is off judging timescales from December rebalancing results. Okay. They also make microprocessors, Jamie says. That's probably leaning back to... so I got like... I mean, my graphics card used to be state-of-the-art at 3090, but you get 4090s now, and I don't think they're doing a 5090 series. I'm sure I read that they were focusing on getting the 4090s in mass production because of such demand for them. So maybe the next one we see is going to be the 60 series, so 6060, 6070, 6080, 6090. Greg's put, given your great coin research and strategic buys during the bear market, then having these shitcoins make rapid gains, curious how that sits with you. Does it seem fair game or a bit more what the fuck? No, it is what it is. And, going back to the portfolio, there was a time where, I was 40, 50% still with USDT after buying a lot of these. And, that's just part and parcel of how it goes. I completely accept that the projects that I went into in 2022 were legacy ones, generally, from the previous bear market, but they were ones that, I had an emotional attachment to some of them, but I generally all felt that they were good. Moonbeam, I do think is underrated, and it is growing. It was down at 16 cents and it was up at 64 not long so long ago. So it's climbing back up there. I don't think it'll get to its all-time high because that's like $40 or whatever. But some of these newer ones come along, and you've just got to accept that you need to rebalance them, and there will always be better ones out there. And arguably, the newer projects that do make it, although the risk is higher for them to make it, if they make it, the percentage of returns is far greater because they started at such a smaller position. And we've seen that. So Casper, I don't think I did anywhere near as good as a lot of you, but I feel I did very well out of it. I'm happy with that. BitTensor got a little bit greedy, which has cost me somewhat, but again, still does quite well. But I still believe in Near, and I think Near's proved itself very strongly. I still believe in Polkadot, and I think Polkadot's a perfect storm at the moment of undermarketed, waiting a delivery, but still very heavily used. I think that will honestly, I do believe that will explode. Rose has done nothing but gone up, which has been a great one also, and all of them are stakeable. So that whole year that I've been holding them, they've just been increasing the portfolio. And that's free money. And you could argue that had I just sat on my hands with nothing and just YOLO'd it all into Casper and BitTensor, yes, I would have done better. Absolutely. But I'd have had to time things and moving it around. Whereas this way, I've spread my risk across things, new and old, and I personally feel more comfortable doing that. And then this, although it says business, should really just say pension. This is the Uber safe pot. I don't even trade it. So the rebalancing of the S&P 500 is third Friday of March. But I think they issue their report the following. Okay, right, I get you. Well, I will certainly look into that. So thanks for putting it on the radar. Let's have a look at Tau Inu since we've been talking, shall we? So, 3 cents. I bought a little bit more yesterday, thinking, I'll run the risk and see what happens. And I swear I bought it. Delayed that. I think it must have been around about here. It's around about 32, 33. And if I'd only waited until the morning, probably could have got a much better position. But what are we doing? Why is this not loading? There we go. You see my really rough doodles. Almost there's some logic to them there. We're just bouncing in between this, and after that run up there, I expect might see some sell pressure. What'll be interesting to see, and I haven't had time to have a look at it, is order book between this and Mexi. I imagine Uniswap is still the preferred place. The advertisement and the order book depth needs to get better in Mexi, but once that happens, I think we may start to see a bit more organic growth from that. But we are where we are with that one. I have no illusions whatsoever that this is anything other than a meme. I don't personally buy into the if Tau does well, this will do well, because this is a meme, and Tau could do fantastic and this doesn't make it, or vice versa. So I'm absolutely happy with this. In the time that I bought it 10x, I've traded it 2 or 3 times in this little bit here, I've taken it out into ETH and bought other stuff. And so I'm just happy with where I am. And if it does what it does, or it goes to zero, it doesn't matter for me now, because I've taken the profit. I'm not in Zappy, but I know some of you are. And obviously it had that almighty Cyan pump yesterday. Up. It's had a fair bit again today. I don't know if RT have been continuing to buy. But yeah, definitely seeing some volatility within this at the moment. But outside of that descending channel, both through that quite well. So just have to wait and see. Just while I was on this yesterday, I couldn't help myself. It's a website called Dex Checker AI. Sorry, I'm digressing here. Enter the app. And you can tap in any token. So I tap in Zappy. Example, go on Zappycorn. And then you can have a look. And like, who are the biggest buyers over the last 30 days? And you can have a look at the wallets that are the biggest buyers over the last 30 days. I'm not going to do it in case any of you are watching this. But I tell you, between 4 and 12, there were a fair few that I would almost certainly say are in RT, just with what tokens are in those wallets. But it's really interesting just to sort of flick through. And it's, again, one of the beauties of the blockchain is, we may not know who the actual individual person is, but we can track a lot of stuff there. So it works for any token. I came across it yesterday. But yeah, I had a bit of fun after Simon's announcement, just having a look to see who was buying it. And yes, loads of people who were buying it bought other tokens that we had, like AIT and obviously TownU and a few other things that we're keeping on their ETH wallets. It was just, might have been complete coincidence, but I dare say the vast majority of them were probably RT members. And there were some big numbers that people were buying. I digress there. In terms of everything else, I mean, generally most things are, in that dip at the moment. And as I said earlier, aside from the TA point of view, if there's something that you liked the price of 2 weeks ago, the chances are we're back at that price now. So, deal with that information as you see fit. The one I suppose I am keeping my eye on really is Casper. I feel like Casper now, it's been under the 50 EMA, not on the daily, for a bit, but we're starting to get a lot of these other ones. So for me, I kind of feel like 10 cents is probably a likely target to turn around. But what I would say is maybe it hits the top end of this channel. It's actually 11 cents. But either way, I feel like we just see a drift down. But what we really need to see is some sort of movement. And I don't have ingrained in my memory sort of the patterns and Vice 5 or whatever they're all called. But I'm sure one of them around here is supposed to be a double bottom. So that's what we're kind of looking for at the moment. It's some sort of double bottom leading into a Vice. But we'll have to wait and see on that one. This Entangled that came out last week. So I bought on the day it came out. I got in around about 140 to 150, but prices kind of stabilized. So I've been buying for about 173, and I heard just before I went live, it hung at like 216. I think it got in at a little bit earlier today. So yeah, I'm still buying this. I feel like the price has settled despite the last few days of turmoil. So we'll just have to wait and see where that one goes. Chris has put, as all your stake coins are in your personal pot, does that mean their interest is taxed as income tax? So that's a good question. I don't necessarily know the answer to that. I seem to remember our friendly accountant Steve suggesting that at the moment the HMRC is still kind of pushing everything towards capital gains, but I just need to run it through the tax calculator and see what they say, and then I'll speak to my accountant about that. But if it is, it is. Like at the moment, there's nothing I can necessarily do about that. I can either decide not to get the staking rewards, or I can take it, and I'm not cross-pollinating my pots. My business is completely separate. Treat as if it's not mine. Excuse me. What the interesting thing is, more for security reasons, but I've split my portfolio 4 ways. I kind of call them, one's my pot, one's the wife's, and then I got 2 children, so one's for each of the kids. It's all mine. I just happen to say, for security reasons, spread it across 4 wallets, or 4 sets of wallets, should I say? But in my head, I always refer to them, or to my wife, as like her pot or the kids' pot or whatever. But deep down, I know that I'm gonna have to pay the tax on it all. So yeah, I'll just keep the profit. Okay, we are 1.5 hours into it, and I'm going to say, does anyone have any questions? And if not, think that's a good place to end it. So, does anyone? Oh, here we go. Yeah, Foyer did a Coinly update the other day, and staking rewards come out as income. There you go. So I resynced my wallets last week, but I didn't bother running it all the way through at the moment because I do that at the end of the month. But I did some Solana meme plays last week. I think a few of us did, and I'm wondering how interesting that's going to be. So I haven't done any since Friday, since whenever I announced it stopped, just because I was busy for the weekend. But yeah, I can only say, guys, for those of you who have struggled to do your tax in time for this year, just keep on top of it by doing it once a month. Just get that done. But right, okay, that seems to be it. Thanks for the updates. I'm going to check out MicroStrategy in the S&P 500. So that's a good one. I'll keep you updated with the interactions I get with exchanges and seeing whether or not I can do some on-ramps and any fees and all that kind of stuff. And other than that, if you've got any questions, feel free to hit me up. And failing that, I will see you all on Thursday. Enjoy the rest of your evening and good night.